Welcome in, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Transform Recruiting Podcast. I'm the host, Brad Owens, but with me today, I maybe have I don't know if I can call you the OG host, like the host of recruiting looking into the future, Mr. Matt Alder. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hi there. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be on other people's podcasts. I don't have to think of write the questions and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much for having me on.
Right. Well, it was interesting. You jumped on, and everyone, you might hear a little bit of audio difference. It turns out people that host podcasts have pretty good audio setups.
Yeah, it kind of comes with the territory.
Right, it does. So a little better audio quality for everyone today. All right. So, Mr. Recruiting Future. Tell us a little bit about yourself so people get an idea of where your perspective's coming from today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Matt Alder, I run and host the Recruiting Future podcast. I've been doing that now for 8 years. In fact, I think it's 8 years this week. So,
congratulations!
Happy birthday to the podcast. So it's been a long time. My podcast looks at the future of recruiting. I talk to heads of talent acquisition, heads of talent, senior HR people, thought leaders in the industry, and also people outside of the industry with some really interesting perspectives on where technology might take us. I also write books. I've written 2 books about recruiting and talent acquisition, do a lot of speaking, and generally do a lot of research into our space.
Gotcha. So, content master.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but happy to wear that hat if you'll give it to me.
I will today. That'd be perfect for you. All right. So, as the person who looks into all of this, what is the future of recruiting, and why do you think that?
Okay. Well, that's a very broad question.
Can I start with that softball?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's kind of start at that level. Well, I think let me start by saying that this year, what's happening in recruiting, talent acquisition, I think is really interesting. We've obviously had several years of disruption, due to the pandemic, everyone quitting, everyone hiring again, all kinds of, all kinds of sort of disruption and crazy things happening. During that time, we've seen the unrelentless sort of pace in terms of the increase in sophistication of technology. So this has kind of been going on. And I think we're kind of now at this really interesting point. So first of all, it's really impossible to say what's going on in recruiting in 2023, because I don't think that we can simplify or generalize the current market conditions. So on the one hand, very high profile layoffs in tech going on all over the world. On the other hand, lots of companies desperate for tech skills. At the same time, lots of skill shortages in lots of different places, lots of people with budgets being cut, lots of people kind of hiring at a million miles an hour. And I can't remember a time in all the years that I've been in this space when it's just been so all over the place like that. However, I think what is very clear is we're seeing an acceleration in the evolution of talent acquisition. And that might be driven by economic factors. So, people are having to work with smaller budgets, do less with more, or they're struggling to hire people. And also, technology is a huge factor here in terms of how we move forward. So, AI, automation, personalization, these are all things that are going to shake up our space and make the work that we do look sort of very different moving forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that dichotomy. You have like these very focused, more niche firms, which everyone's like, get into, do a niche firm. And then anyone who focuses on tech right now is like, oh, what do I do? But then you have, like the high volume, I don't know, like manufacturing type recruiting firms that are still like, what are you all talking about? I can't find candidates.
Healthcare and
right.
all those kind of things as well. So yeah, it's I think normally on recruiting podcasts and in the content that people produce, there's always lots of generalizations and simplifications of what's going on. And there's always like, this is what's happening in recruiting at the moment. And we just can't say that at the moment. But the one thing that is certain is uncertainty and change and evolution.
Sure. So, since you mentioned the AI, the automation, the personalization, that lends itself really well to this high volume, hard to find the right candidate, that kind of space. So, let's focus there for a minute. So, when you mention this personalization and this automation, a lot of firm owners and the folks that are working for them now have grown up in this call and email space. That's really all they're focused on. So when you think about this personalization, this automation, where do you see that applying for those owners that might be a little low hanging fruit?
Yeah, I think that automation is kind of being embedded in lots of different areas of recruiting. If we're talking about that, high volume hiring, those kind of areas, what I'm seeing is lots of automation in terms of outreach, in terms of communication, in terms of scheduling, in terms of initial assessment, all those kind of things. The ability to provide, I think what's going on is it's the ability to provide potential candidates with excellent automated communication that lets them know exactly where they are and what's going on, in a way that people like to communicate. People like to communicate by text message, by WhatsApp, by the kind of things that automation is plugging into. It's very difficult to phone people and email people and get a response these days. So I think that a lot of the automation in that sector is obviously it's about improving efficiencies and those kind of things. I think that goes without saying, but really it's been driven by improving that candidate experience. And I think that if we look at all the other areas of our life, we're used to automated messaging and things just working and being able to to self-serve and do things, even if that's going to a supermarket and checking your own, putting your own goods through the till, or checking into airplanes, whatever it is. We are used to that degree of automation and that degree of self-service, and I think it's inevitable that it's going to move into what it is moving into recruiting.
Yeah, I completely agree there. I feel like other industries, and I'm going to give a two part to this. So, one part, other industries, since I've grown up in this space, like looking across all of these industries, which is a good thing about niche recruiting. You get to see a whole bunch of different industries. But looking across all of those industries, a lot of other industries for their consumers have solved all of this probably a long time ago. It's been solved for, so we know the technology exists. One of the pitfalls that I'm seeing out there in the market when it comes to this automation is they focus on that first thing you said, the efficiency side of things. So they may be trying to take the same process that they've been doing for years and just automate that. And you followed that up with a good point of to increase the candidate experience. So what are some of those things that would, not necessarily be in a recruiting process, but should be automated to increase that candidate experience? Are you seeing anything there?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose just to pick up on your point there about focusing on the process and automating things that people are already doing and not thinking of the candidate. One of the key things here is about quality of communication. So, whether that's automated sourcing or automated interview scheduling or whatever that might be, we still need to think really carefully about how we communicate, how we craft the copy, how we sort of teach the machines to talk to people, because otherwise you just get, automated spamming or taking really bad processes and making them work faster and more efficient
Yep.
and
That's
causing,
exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
causing more damage. So I think that um, really thinking through that human effort, that human aspect of empathetic, persuasive communication is kind of absolutely critical here. So I think that when people look at automation, it's really important that you have a strategy that includes that speaks to personalization and communication, yeah, as well. Otherwise, I think it just makes things, it makes things worse for candidates, and ultimately, you can't reach the talent that you need. Other places I'm seeing automation and personalization, so that kind of, sourcing and outreach, communications during the start of the process, interview scheduling. I'm seeing people, companies providing automated feedback from assessments, also automation in things like career pages and career sites to sort of really personalize the experience based on what someone's searching for. So I think that it can really really make recruiting better for everyone, make it more efficient, and really deliver a high quality experience to everyone.
Yeah, agreed. The I brought this up to someone the other day who's in the industry talking about this personalization. And I mentioned the whole when they're visiting your career page thing. And the whole idea of personalizing that just, they were like, that's foreign to me. What are you talking about? So the way I explained it to them is the Amazon, I said, all right, pull up your phone, go to Amazon.com. And I went to Amazon.com too. Two completely different homepages because they're tailored directly to us. And I tried to explain the same sort of thing with a website. If I came to your website for the first time and I searched for accounting roles, if I show up again, I shouldn't see all of your brand new tech roles. I should see, hey, look at this new accounting role. It's perfect based on the last one you did. Those are the types of personalizations that I'm thinking about when I think in the space. A lot of people, when they think personalization, is the old email hacks that we all used to have of putting hashtag name, hashtag so that we personalize their first name. And then every once in a while we forget to change that and it goes out and says, hi, name.
Yeah.
That's what I think people are thinking about when they initially think of personalization. But I like the examples that you used. I hope that
Yeah,
people start using that.
it's really about that kind of personalization of context. Really really understanding the context in which someone's doing something. I think Netflix is a great example as well because
True.
Netflix offers personalized recommendations, but even the graphics promoting the shows are personalized depending on what someone's watching. So, I saw a kind of an analysis with this when I think it was not this season of Stranger Things, the season before, where they had multiple different versions of the graphic promoting it, depending on what they categorize the person, the kind of consumption the person had in terms of what they thought was going to be the hook to make them watch it. So that's the level that we're talking about in the rest of our everyday lives. So recruiting's got a long way to go till it gets
Yeah,
there.
it does. All right. So I'm the recruiter owner listening to this, and all of a sudden I'm going, holy geez, I don't have the staff for that. I don't have the insights for that. So are you seeing any beginner friendly ways that folks are starting to go down this personalization route?
Excuse me, voice is leaving me. Yeah, I think the key thing is to really understand your. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do. So even I run a one man business as a podcast host. I have to obviously deal with a lot of people, schedule a lot of interviews. I do two shows a week. I automated my process. I've used Calendly. I've kind of used some ways to kind of automate that into my CRM. I'm using text expander to send instructions to my guests and pulling that all together into a process. And what it means is actually that people who want to come on the show are now getting much better experience because they're not relying on me having to send individual emails each time. A lot of it is kind of automated in terms of what they get. And that was the experience I had coming on your show. You've kind of automated a lot of that sort of guest experience, and that's not that's the things that we've done by ourselves without huge budgets and without lots of people. So there are lots of opportunities to use technology out there. And I think what's interesting is there are kind of price points to suit everyone now in terms of how you can give a better experience through automating things.
I agree. One of the biggest impact things I've ever seen bear a lot of fruit was we had a reliable client that was kind of our evergreen client. Like we had this one type of position at this one client, and they had a very specific interview type process. So they were hiring loads of people from us. And what I ended up implementing is a before you go in text. So it was an hour before the interview, when most people who lived in a local area were probably getting ready to leave. I sent out this automated text message that said, "Hey, hope you're ready for your interview. Have a fantastic and safe trip. Wishing you the best of luck as you walk in. Something to think about on your drive that may help you during this interview is," and I gave them kind of a question to just tickle their brain. And the amount of personalization that people thought was going into that, so that they felt like, wow, this person really cares about me getting that job. It was unbelievable because everyone talked about it after
Mm.
they called me for interview feedback. So it's little things like that that I think would just make a complete difference.
And also, I think that now we're so used to that kind of automation, it doesn't even matter if it's not from a human. If I look at it and go, do you know what? That's an automated process. Providing the information is timely and useful and valuable and makes my life easier, I don't care whether it's come from a human or a machine. Now I
Yep.
want there to be a human in the background that I can talk to. And in recruiting, there kind of always will be, the human intervention at some point or other. But I don't think people necessarily care that they're talking to a machine if they're getting that timely, valuable information and that's been really thought through in terms of what they need at that at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned something there. There'll always be a human element. When the conversation inevitably, every single time you get into the future of recruiting, is like, oh, the recruiterless future. I agree with you that there's always going to be a more human touch. Thinking about the potential of recruiterless hiring, something like the Amazon hiring process for their warehouses or whatever, where do you think there still needs to be the human element? And where do you think that's going to be important going forward?
So to me, it's all about to me, I mean, you raise a good point about that the Amazon model there. So I think the amount of human intervention, if you like, I think is going to vary from sector to sector and job to job. It's probably hard to generalize what that would look like, but also ultimately the human intervention in recruiting is all about persuasion. How do you understand someone's needs, their needs from their career, their needs from their life, to persuade them that this is the right role for them. And I don't think you can automate that persuasion to in some extent in terms of the type of content that you give to people, but ultimately these are very human decisions. Where I'm going to work, that affects my whole life, where I live, my family, all those kind of things. And I think that sophistication in empathy and persuasion is what you can't automate. What you need to think about is, where does that fit most effectively in the process? And are my humans working on that and working on building the relationships that they need to? Or are they working on things that not only could be automated, but would be better if they were automated?
I'm glad that there's no one that's looking for a new job with a recruiting firm listening to this show that I know of, because I do feel like the persuasion aspect is something that AI can't get. I tried. I put on Chat GPT and I gave it, here are the key factors that I look for. Persuade me that I want a job that features those things. And it wasn't fantastic at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is a way that I agree. And the things that I've seen some people in the industry, they'll know who they are because they listen to this, uh, start to use that as their key, their differentiator, is when they're going through the process of talking to this candidate, of intake, of whatever that is, they start starring the things that would be those kind of um, ability to apply a bit of persuasion to this
Yeah,
individual, so that when it comes time to close, the things that pop up on their screen in front of them when you're delivering an offer are, here are all the things this person cares about, so you can craft your message.
absolutely, and that to me is the skill of recruiting. And
Yes.
I think if we go back to a world before the internet and mobiles and computers and all those kind of things, that was the fundamental skill that
Yes.
that people had. And what I'd hope was, I think that what we've seen in the last 20 years as technology has become ubiquitous is, a lot of that has been lost in terms of mass email spamming and, some of the things that go on. And what I would hope is that, through clever use of automation and AI, we can, get back to that. And actually the differentiator will be, those skills that people have, not their scheduling skills or their their ability to do 100 cold calls in a day or whatever it is. It's kind of
Right.
like, that real core of recruiting. And I would hope that, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but my optimistic view is that is what will come out of the current technology AI revolution that we're seeing. And I think interesting you mentioned chat GPT there, because I think what that's done is that's kind of really sort of brought this into people's consciousness that actually this is what actually can, this is what AI can actually do. Now, that's kind of been happening in the background in lots of different software iterations for a couple of years now. But certainly in terms of bringing it front of mind for everyone, I think that's perhaps the most revolutionary thing about it, that people are now looking at it going, oh, hang on a minute, if it was my job to just write very simple copy like that, then I'm going to have to up my game. And or actually we can automate things that we didn't think were were possible. But also, of course it has its limitations.
It does. It does. And hopefully that's what recruiters will pick up on, because smile and dialing, it's not going to work so much. So thank you, Matt. I want to be respectful of your time. And thank you so much for coming out and expending just a little bit of knowledge with everyone. I will tell everyone listening that this is just a tiny little taste of what you can get from Matt. If you go to recruitingfuture.com, you'll find this and much, much more. Thank you so much for taking time out today. Any last little words of wisdom you want to leave everyone with?
um Not that I can think of, other than check out the podcast and just think very carefully and strategically about AI and automation. This is not about rushing out to to learn to learn the in and outs of how to get the best out of Chat GPT this week or next week. It's about taking a step back, looking at your business and thinking very strategically about how these tools are going to really help you move forward.
Love it. Thank you again, Matt. Really appreciate it. Recruitingfuture.com is where you can go to find more from Matt. If you want to find more episodes of this podcast, it's at transformrecruiting.com. Feel free to send me an email, hello@bradowens.com. Thank you so much again, Matt, and we'll catch you all on the next episode.